Friday, August 16th, 2024, 12:48 a.m. I was 22 and working part-time as a cinema usher at AMC Empire 25 in Times Square, which sounded cooler than it was. Most nights were the same routine. Tier tickets, point people toward the right hallway, clean whatever they left behind, and do a last sweep after the final screening so the overnight crew didn't walk into a disaster. Times Square outside was still loud, even past midnight. You could feel it through the glass. Sirens Dopplering, tourists laughing too hard, street performers packing up like the night was just another shift. Inside, the theater was a different world. The air was colder, dry from AC, with that familiar blend of buttery popcorn and stale soda that never fully disappeared no matter how much we cleaned. I pushed a broom and dustpan cart down the hallway toward the last auditorium, listening to small, normal sounds that kept me grounded. A popcorn scoop clinked against a metal bin in concessions as someone finished closing it up. Faint trailer audio bled through a wall somewhere. One of those ads on loop, muffled and hollow like it was playing underwater. Above an exit, the sign buzzed with a thin electrical whine that you only noticed when everything else went quiet. Inside the auditorium, the aisle step lights made the seat numbers glow dimly, a dotted line of tiny amber points. The screen was black, but it still reflected a faint sheen from the aisle lights, like a huge, dark mirror. My shoes made a soft crunch as I crossed over a sticky soda spill that had dried into the carpet, and I reminded myself to hit that spot with cleaner before I left. When I came back out toward the lobby, the ticket kiosk was already in sleep mode, looping a blue screen like a bored screensaver. That blue glow made the empty lobby look colder than it was. I glanced at my phone, 12:48 a.m., and told myself I had maybe 10 more minutes of work, then the subway home, it was supposed to be simple. Quick sweep, quick check, lock the door, go. I started in the middle rows because that's where people dropped the most stuff when they stood up in a hurry. Cups, candy wrappers, a single shoe sometimes, always something that didn't belong. It was routine work, and routine was calming. Halfway down the aisle, I saw a torn ticket stub on the carpet. Blue ink, jagged rip, the kind we saw 100 times a night. I picked it up, glanced at it out of habit, and stuffed it in my pocket. 2 rows later, I saw the same torn ticket stub again. Not another stub like it. The same rip pattern, the same little crease in the corner, like I'd dropped it and forgotten. My stomach tightened in that embarrassed way you get when you think you're doing something sloppy. I checked my pocket. The first stub was still there. I stood there for a second, staring at the second stub like my brain was trying to render it properly. My first rational explanation was the simplest. I was tired and mixing up details. Lots of stubs looked identical. I'd seen thousands. My brain could be stitching patterns together because it was bored. Second explanation, someone had tracked 2 stubs from the same ticket, like a double tier. Sometimes customers ripped them weirdly. Sometimes the tier machine caught them wrong. Third explanation, I'd missed this one earlier and my mind was playing a trick because the place was too quiet. I bent down, picked it up, and compared it in my hand to the one in my pocket. It wasn't a match by accident. It was the same. As I straightened, 3 small wrong details landed on me at once. The exit sign buzzed louder for a moment, like a power surge. The dim seat numbers along the aisle steps flickered, then steadied. And that faint trailer audio bleeding through the wall didn't change like a normal loop. It stuttered, repeated the same line twice, then went silent. None of that was a smoking gun. All of it had innocent reasons. Old wiring, late-night resets, Another auditorium still running cleanup. I told myself that as I walked toward the back row, trying to feel normal again. But the auditorium didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like it was waiting for me to notice something else. When I reached the back section, one seat slowly reclined by itself. It wasn't dramatic, it didn't snap down. It eased backward like someone had shifted their weight and let it go. The leather made a quiet, dry creak that carried too far in the empty room. I froze, hand still holding my flashlight. My mind offered a clean explanation before fear could. Broken spring. Uneven floor. Someone had kicked it earlier and it finally settled. I walked closer anyway, because that's what you do when you don't want to admit you're scared of a chair. That's when I heard a phone vibrate. Not a ringtone, not a notification jingle, just that low insect buzz sound from under a seat. It pulsed twice, then stopped the exact moment I crouched and shined my light under the row. There was nothing there. No phone glow, no screen. Just dark carpet and dust and the edge of a cup holder. I stood up slowly and looked toward the auditorium doors. I hadn't heard anyone come in. I hadn't heard footsteps. I hadn't heard the door open at all. I started walking down the aisle toward the exit. Behind me, the auditorium door didn't latch fully. It clicked softly, again and again. Like the latch was catching and releasing, just enough sound to keep a person aware of it. My shoulders went tight. I turned and looked. The door was almost closed, but not cleanly. It sat there with a sliver of darkness at the frame, moving a fraction as if air pressure was nudging it. I told myself, draft. The HVAC kicking. Someone propped it earlier and it didn't settle right. I kept going, faster now, flashlight beam jittering across the steps. Near the front, my light caught fresh shoe prints in the spilled soda, spot I'd planned to clean. Wet-looking prints in a sticky sheen, leading off the carpet and toward the side of the screen wall, right into the curtain gap that hid the service area. I stopped breathing for a second. Those prints weren't from earlier. Earlier, it was just a dried mess that crunched under my shoe. Now, it looked disturbed, like someone had stepped in it and walked away. I reached for my radio, thumb pressing the button on instinct. "Hey, can someone come to auditorium?" I started, trying to keep my voice casual, like I was calling for help with a spill. The radio answered with my own words, a half-second delay, same tone, same cadence, like an echo that didn't belong to the room. My hand went cold around the plastic. That wasn't a bad speaker. That wasn't interference. It sounded like me being played back. The pattern became plain, and I hated how simple it was. The room kept producing fresh signs of a person. Ticket stub, moving seat, vibrating phone, wet footprints, while the exits and systems started acting wrong at the exact moments I looked for them. Like the place was narrowing my options. I backed toward the auditorium exit and pushed it open. The hallway push bar opened, but it didn't release. The bar moved under my palm, the door shifted a fraction, and then stopped like it had hit an invisible lock. It felt overridden, not jammed, not stuck, controlled. My heartbeat went hard and loud in my ears. My sentences got shorter in my head. Don't go behind the screen, don't go deeper. Get to cameras. Get to people. I stepped back into the auditorium, keeping the exit door in sight, and started moving backward toward the aisle where the step lights were brightest. I raised my voice on purpose, talking to the radio like someone was listening. "I'm heading to the lobby. I need a manager and security to meet me. Now." I didn't wait for a response. I didn't try the bar again. I kept moving. I kept the flashlight up. I kept my shoulders squared like it mattered. And then the curtain on the side of the screen shifted. Just a little, like someone had been standing behind it and leaned closer. A man stepped out from the side curtain gap like he belonged there. He was close enough that I could see his face clearly in the aisle light. He didn't look frantic. He didn't look drunk. He looked calm in a way that made my skin crawl. He tilted his head slightly, as if he was trying to place me in the dark. "Which row are you on?" he asked. It wasn't shouted. It wasn't playful. It sounded like a question you'd ask when you were checking a list. My body moved before my brain finished deciding. I backed fast toward the exit, one hand on the door, and pushed again. This time, it swung. The man rushed it the second it moved, fast and committed. Not a chase yet, an attempt to close the distance before I could get out. I slammed the crash bar behind me and ran. I hit the concessions hallway and saw the popcorn stand on my left, metal, heavy, loud if it went down. I shoved it hard as I sprinted past. It tipped. The bin rattled, the scoop clanged. Popcorn spilled like gravel across the tile. The noise was the point. Noise meant eyes. Noise meant witnesses. I ran straight to the front desk, breath tearing out of me, and shouted for a manager without forming a story first. People didn't teleport in. It still took time. That was the cruel part. Even with the popcorn stand down and my voice loud, there were minutes where I stood behind the counter with my hands shaking, watching the hallway like I expected him to appear any second. A manager finally came out, then building security, then police. They cleared the auditorium with flashlights and radios, and the kind of slow-practiced caution that told me they'd seen situations go bad before. They didn't find the man. They didn't find a phone under the seats. They didn't find anyone behind the screen wall. What they did find was a side service door near the auditorium, propped slightly open with a folded napkin wedged at the bottom. Small, stupid, effective. Like someone wanted it to look like an accident. Like someone wanted a quiet way in and out. I went home as the sun started to lighten the corners of the city, and I didn't sleep much. The next day, my employee app showed my shift summary. It said I clocked out at 12:52 a.m. At 12:52, I was still inside, calling for help, with my hands on the counter. So, who clocked me out? Before we get into the next story, if you're new here, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next upload. And if you enjoyed these stories, please do like, comment, and share. Sunday, November 24th, 2024, 1:17 a.m. I was 36 and driving rideshare on weekends because late shows paid better than bar runs, and they came with less drama, usually. Plano felt calm at that hour, the kind of quiet you only get when the retail lights are still on but the people are gone. My last 2 trips had been couples laughing too loud in the back seat, the kind who smelled like buttery popcorn and winter cologne, and kept arguing over whether the ending made sense. I was parked outside Cinemark Legacy on North Central Expressway, idling in the outer lane of the lot, waiting for the next ping. The app's pickup pin kept drifting between 2 entrances like it couldn't decide where door A ended and door C started. I watched it slide a few yards, stop, then slide again. Not uncommon, big parking lots always confused GPS. A parking lot lamp near the far curb flickered like it was fighting with itself, and moths orbited it in a frantic little storm. My windshield had a thin film of mist from the cold air, and every so often the wipers squeaked across the glass, rubber dragging on dry instead of wet. It was that annoying sound that makes your teeth itch. Near the cinema doors, a movie poster lightbox buzzed, softly. One letter in the title was dimmer than the rest, so the poster looked like it was blinking in slow motion. A security golf cart sat a lane over, with its headlights on, idling. When it reversed, it made that soft beep-beep that sounded polite and useless at the same time. The air outside my cracked window smelled like popcorn and car exhaust mixing together, sweet and burnt at once. It should have felt normal. It should have felt like any other late-show pickup. Then I got a request. The message came in fast. I'm by door C. I glanced up toward the mall-facing doors and felt my brain stall for a second because the gates were down. Metal grates pulled across the entrances like eyelids, the kind of closed you can't mistake. I checked the pin again. It hovered closer to door C anyway, stubborn as a lie. I messaged back, "Doors look locked. Are you outside?" No reply. The pin drifted again, sliding toward the far end of the lot like the rider was speedwalking in circles. My first rational explanation was simple. The rider meant the cinema's door C inside the building, not the mall entrance, and they were confused. People called everything a door after midnight. Second explanation. The app was lagging and the pin was rubber banding, nothing more. Third, the rider was outside but standing near a side exit I couldn't see from where I was. I started rolling forward slowly, keeping my speed low. In a parking lot that empty, any movement felt louder than it should. That's when a man stepped out from between two rows of parked cars and waved a phone in the air like a flag. He looked normal in the way that sets off alarms after the fact. Jeans, dark hoodie, hands steady, not stumbling, not lost. He walked toward my passenger side with the phone held up so I could see the lock screen glow. "Your rider dropped this," he said, nodding at the phone. "They want you to follow me. They're over here." He said it like he'd done it before. Like rideshare drivers were trained to obey strangers with phones. My brain tried to smooth it over again. Maybe he was genuinely helping. Maybe the rider was drunk and panicking. Maybe the rider didn't want to walk in the cold. Maybe they sent him as a messenger because their own phone was dead. But 3 wrong details stacked fast. Wrong detail number 1. The mall doors were still locked, and yet he spoke like the rider had just been there. Wrong detail number 2. The pickup pin jumped, hard, to the far side of the lot, like the rider had suddenly covered 100 yards in a second. Wrong detail number 3. The man never showed me a rideshare screen. No trip details, no name. Nothing but a lock screen with a cracked wallpaper photo and a timestamp. I didn't unlock my doors. I kept my window up. I smiled, the fake professional smile you use when you want to keep a situation calm without agreeing to it. "I can't follow someone unless the rider's in-app," I said. "Tell them to message me." The man's expression didn't change. He just stepped closer to my passenger door like the rule didn't apply to him. He walked along my car as I rolled forward, matching me at a slow pace like he was tethered to my front bumper. "Just pull up," he said, still holding the phone. "They're right there." I looked past him and saw another person near a row of cars, just a shape at first, then a body shifting into the aisle between lanes. They weren't waving, they weren't calling out. They were mirroring my movement, staying parallel as I crawled forward. 2 people. 1 phone, 1 drifting pin. My throat tightened. I kept my hands light on the wheel so I wouldn't look scared. I kept my eyes moving. Lamp. Moths. Flicker. Dark lanes. Too many places for someone to stand where cameras wouldn't catch a face. I tried to anchor myself to procedure. "Who's the rider?" I asked, loud enough to carry. "What's the name on the account?" He didn't answer. He tapped the phone screen once, waking it, then angled it away like he didn't want me to see anything beyond the lock screen. That was when I noticed the most important detail. He was close enough to reach my door handle without taking a step. Behind him, the cinema's exterior doors did something that made my skin go cold. One of them opened briefly from the inside, just a crack, like someone tested it, then shut again. Not a customer leaving, not a worker stepping out. Just a quick check, like the building blinked. I glanced toward the security golf cart, relieved it was nearby. It turned its wheels slowly and drove away down another lane, the beep-beep fading until it was gone. The area felt instantly emptier, like someone had cleared the stage. The app pin jumped again, then settled, then jumped again. It was leading me, not to a door, to a pocket of darkness between parked cars. The man leaned closer to my window and lowered his voice like he was being considerate. "You're wasting time. Just follow me." I felt my phone vibrate in the mount. The ride canceled. A clean little notification. No warning, no timer, just gone. And the man's hand moved to my passenger door handle at the exact second it happened, like he'd been waiting for that cancellation as a green light. Something in me snapped from polite to survival. I hit the interior light so the cabin lit up bright and exposed. I raised my voice, not screaming, but loud enough to reach any camera mic, any distant worker, any late show couple wandering to their car. "I'm recording," I said. "Dashcam, interior, audio, all of it." I didn't know if that was true in the exact way I said it. What mattered was how it sounded. The man paused for half a beat. Just a tiny hesitation, like attention was a problem. I used that half beat to shift into drive and angle toward the brightest entrance lane, where the poster light box buzzed and the lamp flickered and the open sight lines were widest. I pressed my horn once, short and sharp. Then again, longer. The man walked faster now, trying to keep pace. The second person near the cars shifted too, staying in line with me. I didn't stop. I didn't argue. I aimed for light and witnesses like it was a physical destination. The man lunged for the passenger handle again. Not violent, efficient. His fingers hooked it like he expected it to open. I rolled forward hard. My tires bumped a curb stop with a thick thunk that shook my dashboard. The jolt snapped my phone mount sideways for a second. My heart slammed into my ribs like it wanted out. I laid on the horn. A long, ugly blast that cut through the empty lot and made the flickering lamp look like it was shaking too. The man flinched, not from fear, from attention. He backed off one step, then tried again, quick. I jerked the wheel and pulled out toward the access road, heading straight for the one place I could see people. A staffed gas station across the way with bright canopy lights and cars coming and going. I didn't look in my mirror for long. Just enough to see the man stop at the edge of the lane, phone still in hand, watching me leave like he was deciding whether to run after me or let me go. The second person near the parked cars melted backward into the rows, disappearing in plain sight. As soon as my tires hit the brighter roadway, my hands started shaking so hard I had to grip the wheel tighter to keep straight. I pulled beside the gas station pumps and parked under the canopy lights like they could physically protect me. I kept the doors locked. I called police with my voice steady on purpose, giving the location, the time, the description, and the detail about the lost phone being used like bait. An officer met me near the curb a little later. They drove through the cinema lot with spotlights while I sat in my car staring at the poster light box buzzing in the distance like it was still part of the problem. They didn't find anyone. No helpful stranger, no second person, no abandoned phone on the ground. Just rows of parked cars and flickering lights, and a lot that looked innocent again. I went home and slept like I'd been running. The next morning, I checked my dashcam, needing proof that I hadn't imagined the timing, the cancellation, the hand on the handle, the way the lot emptied. The clip was there. The video was clear, but the audio cut out at the exact moment the man spoke, right where his mouth formed my license plate out loud. Saturday, July 12th, 2025, 2:06 a.m. I was 31, the closing manager at the Alamo Drafthouse Cinema Mueller in Austin, and sold-out midnight premieres were the kind of nights that paid you back in chaos. People came in loud, left louder, and somehow every aisle ended up with the same evidence: crushed popcorn under seats, sticky footprints in the center path, and a few abandoned cups that looked like they'd survived a small war. By the time the last guests finally cleared the lobby, my staff was down to the last two closers. One kid finishing a restroom check, one bartender counting out the drawer. I did the usual end-of-night rhythm on muscle memory. Walk the floor, lock the auditorium doors, make sure the alarms were armed, then close out the registers. At the manager's station, the POS terminal printed the batch close receipts with rapid little clicks, like a tiny machine gun. Piper curled onto the counter in warm ribbons. In the hallway behind me, a mop bucket sloshed as someone pushed it along, and lemon disinfectant hit the air hard enough to cover the old smells of soda syrup and fryer grease. Upstairs, behind a locked booth door, the projectors were still cooling down. You could hear the fans whirring through the wall, steady, mechanical, the sound of expensive equipment trying not to overheat. I liked that sound. It meant everything was normal. It meant the night was ending the way it was supposed to. The carpets looked freshly vacuumed in straight lines, almost satisfying, except for the scattered popcorn that always escaped the nozzle. The emergency exit sign near the service hallway buzzed with a thin electrical whine, and every time I passed it, it felt like the building clearing its throat. I checked my keys, I checked my radio, I checked the time. 2:06 a.m. All I wanted was to finish the lockup and get outside where the air wasn't recycled and sweetened with disinfectant. It was a simple plan. And then the staff-only phone rang. The display read, "Booth." Nobody was scheduled in the booth. I stared at the phone for a second too long, waiting for the ring to stop like it had been a glitch. It didn't. It kept ringing, patient and steady. My first rational explanation was the easiest. Someone upstairs had bumped the handset, or a line was cross-wired, or the booth number had been fat-fingered by a tired staffer calling the wrong extension. It was a midnight premiere. Everyone was half asleep by the end, even the people who pretended they weren't. I picked up, no voice, no breathing. Just a faint line hiss, like open air on the other side. Then the call dropped on its own. Annoying, but not terrifying. Yet, I told myself I'd check the booth after I did one more sweep. Theaters taught you not to chase every weird noise first. You finished the basics. You kept your routine. You didn't give your imagination new places to build a home. Auditorium 3 was supposed to be empty. The movie had ended, the staff had done their first pass, and the doors were already set to lock. When I pushed inside, the aisle step numbers glowed dimly, and the room smelled like warm carpet and popcorn oil. The vacuum lines were still visible under the screen light spill, neat and straight, and in the middle of the back section, one seat was folded up, like someone had just stood. In the cup holder was a drink. Not an abandoned cup. Not dried, warm. The lid had a faint sheen of condensation like it hadn't been sitting long. Wrong detail number 1. I stood still and listened. No laughter, no phone screens, no shifting bodies, just the projector fans cooling somewhere above and the low hum of the building. I leaned down and touched the side of the cup with 2 fingers. It was warm enough to feel fresh. I tried to rationalize that too. Maybe a staffer had set it there while cleaning. Maybe it was mine and I'd forgotten, even though I didn't drink soda. Maybe the heat was from the room itself, the way packed auditoriums held warmth. Then I heard something small from behind the screen wall, an almost soft scrape, like a shoe on concrete. It stopped the second I focused on it. Wrong detail number 2. I backed out of Auditorium 3 and closed the door. I didn't slam it. I didn't want to announce myself. I wanted to finish lockup like a person who wasn't suddenly aware of how many blind corners a cinema had after hours. I headed toward the booth stair, telling myself I'd just check the keypad, confirm nobody was up there, and get on with my night. And I kept noticing the exit sign buzzing louder than it should have been, like the building was trying to push sound into my head so I wouldn't hear anything else. The booth door was staff only, keypad entry with a little green access light that made you feel official when it worked. I entered my code. Beep, beep. Green, click. The door opened. The moment I stepped through, it swung shut behind me and locked with a clean, immediate click. Not the normal delayed latch. Not the closing part of the mechanism. A hard, definitive lock. Wrong detail number 3. I turned and tried the handle. Solid. The keypad on my side had gone dark, like it didn't care who I was anymore. The booth corridor was tighter than the public areas, all utility paint and cable conduits. The projector fans were louder here, whirring behind the locked booth door, steady as an engine. If someone was messing around, that noise would hide it. I keyed my radio to call the off-site security line we used for late closings. "This is Mueller Closing Manager," I said. "I got a booth line call and the booth access door just relocked behind me. Can you confirm if anyone is on site?" The radio crackled. Then my own words played back into my ear. Same pacing, same tone. Just half a second late, like the building had recorded my sentence and tossed it back. My stomach tightened so hard it felt like my belt suddenly got tighter. I forced myself to do the practical thing. Get eyes on systems. Get to cameras. Get to a place with visibility. At the manager station downstairs, we had a CCTV monitor with multiple views. Lobby, hallways, service corridor, exits. If someone was where they shouldn't be, it would show up there. I needed to get back down. I tried my code again. Nothing. No beep, no green, just dead plastic. So I followed the booth corridor to the next, staff-only door, service hallway access. Another keypad, another chance. Beep. Green. Click. I slipped through quickly before it could decide to trap me again. Back in the public corridor, the smell of lemon disinfectant hit me like a reminder that normal life was still happening somewhere. I moved fast, but not panicked. I didn't run yet. Running in a building like that made you feel hunted. At the manager station, I pulled up the CCTV monitor. Most cameras were fine. Lobby, atrium, main entrances, clear. But the service hallway cameras, only those, showed no signal. Not static, not a frozen frame. Just black screens with that clean message, like someone had deliberately cut the feed. My pulse hammered. My mouth went dry. Then the intercom clicked on. A calm voice. Staff cadence, familiar enough that it almost sounded like one of our trainers. "Manager," it said, "to service level for a spill." Then it used my last name, like it was reading it off a list. My skin prickled. A spill wasn't unusual, but nobody else was in the building except a couple of closers up front, and they wouldn't call intercom for a spill at 2 a.m. They'd text, they'd yell, they'd handle it. The pattern finally became plain in a way I couldn't keep rationalizing. The booth phone call, the warm cup in an empty auditorium, doors relocking behind me, my radio repeating me back, and now the one camera zone that mattered going dark, right where the intercom wanted me to go. Someone wasn't just in the building. Someone was trying to move me into the one place I couldn't be seen. I refused to go down to the service level. I didn't announce that decision. I just made it and acted. The service corridor motion light started popping on ahead of me as I walked, then switching off too fast behind me, shrinking my visible world into a moving tunnel. Light, then darkness. Light, then darkness. It pushed my body forward even when I didn't want to move. I stopped at the service level door and looked through the small window. For a second, all I saw was my own reflection. Then a shadow approached from the other side. Not a clear face, not a uniform. Just a human shape moving into the glass like it knew exactly where I was standing. The latch clicked from the inside. I backed up so fast my heel caught the carpet edge and I nearly went down. The service door opened a few inches, not all the way, like whoever was on the other side didn't want to step into the light yet. Like they wanted me to come closer. I didn't. I turned and moved hard toward the main lobby glass. Street visibility, cameras that still worked, a place where sound carried. Footsteps hit the corridor behind me. Not one set, two. Fast, controlled, closing distance without running wild. My keys were in my hand. Heavy ring. Metal. The only thing I could throw without losing my phone or radio. I flung my keys down the hallway as a decoy. They clattered and skidded, loud, enough to pull attention. One of the footsteps hesitated for a fraction of a second. That was all I needed. I hit the emergency exit bar near the lobby. For half a heartbeat, nothing happened, and my brain screamed, "Of course it won't." Then the bar gave. The exit alarm erupted, piercing and ugly, and the door unlocked with a heavy click. Cold air hit my face like a slap. I bolted outside, yelling until my voice broke. Not words at first, just noise that made people turn. I kept moving toward the sidewalk where pedestrians were still drifting between bars, and I didn't stop until I saw heads turn and phones lift and faces actually register me. Only then did I look back. The lobby doors were still closed, and the darkness behind the glass looked calm again, like it had never moved. Police didn't arrive instantly, but they arrived fast enough that my hands were still shaking when I pointed at the building and tried to explain the order of events without sounding crazy. They swept the cinema, auditorium 3, the booth corridor, the service hallway, the service level door. No suspects, no maintenance staff, no spilled anything. But they did find one staff door, one taped so it wouldn't fully latch. A thin strip placed perfectly where the mechanism would catch, like someone wanted it to look closed while staying easy to open from the other side. The next day, corporate pulled footage. They wanted timestamps. They wanted clarity. They wanted it to be simple. The video was clear. You could see me moving through the lobby, crossing camera zones, stopping at the manager station, then braking for the exit. But from 2:06 a.m. to 2:14 a.m., the timestamp froze on one single second, while my body kept moving like time was still passing. 8 minutes of motion. 1 second on the clock. And nobody could tell me what, exactly, the system thought it was hiding. If you have a true story you want featured on The Wrong Silence, send it to thewrongsilence@agemail.com.